Hello, my name is Brenda Wanga, and I would like to appreciate you for having me here today. I'm a survivor of domestic violence and mental health illness. Through God's intervention, I was able to prevail. So I'm here to encourage you out there that whenever you feel like you've lost it all, you feel like God has let you down, you feel like God is not there for you, I'm here to tell you that God is omnipresent and He can do it for you if He did it for me. Through God, I was able to find love again when I thought that I was never going to find someone who will love and accept me. So if I did it, if God did it for me, He will do it for you too. Hello, thank you for having me here today. So my name is Brenda Wanga. I'm a mother to a 13 years old, very handsome boy, and I'm 38 years old. I was born and raised in Mombasa County. That is the coastal part of Kenya, all through my childhood from kindergarten to university. So I would like to share a bit about my childhood, my experience, how it was, to where I am today. So I went to a local school back in Mombasa, and it was called Airport View Academy, and that's where I went from kindergarten to standard 8. But then my experience in that school was really terrible because I was brought up in a very humble background, or rather very poor background. And most of the time when I would go to school, I would have tattered school uniform. And to explain it for you to understand is that when I was in primary, we used to do home science. And one of the units was called stitching. And one of the stitches is calico patch. So there's this one boy who used to bully me so much. Whenever I would go to school, he would call me calico patch. But then there was nothing I could do at that point. There was no one I could share the situation with. Like how I was feeling, I could not even share with my mother because what changes will it make? Because that was what my mother could afford at that time. And then another thing is I have a very sensitive skin. So back growing up, I used to have a lot of spots on my legs. And my fellow pupils used to bully me and call me Gatundu from the holes from Tundu because of the spots that I had on my legs. So all this situation really affected me so much to a point that I could not concentrate on my studies. I would cry myself to sleep, and you can imagine how the whole situation can have an effect on someone's mental health. And the bad thing about it is back then, people really didn't understand about mental health, like what impact it has on someone. So I would carry the whole baggage to myself. I didn't have anyone to share with. But one thing that I thank my mom for, because I was brought up by a single mother, is that no matter the experience, no matter the life that I was brought up in, we went to the best of schools, from kindergarten all through to university or other college. So I finished my class 8 in Airport View Academy, like I mentioned before, and then I excelled very well. And I went to Moi Forces Academy, that is in Mombasa. And one thing that I would like to share is me being admitted to Moi Forces Academy. It was really God's plan, because when I joined the school, it wasn't up to Form 4, it was up to Form 3. So the school that I had been admitted, it was a boarding school and it was very expensive. But then my mother, through her friends, she was informed about my Forces Academy. And then the school is basically for Navy workers, other people who are well off. That is when I schooled there. And she really wanted me to go to the school, and I had passed very well. But then there are people who had passed more than me, they had excelled more than me. They were taking very higher grades. So she approached the school principal, and she explained her situation, that she had a daughter who had excelled very well, and she wanted her to be admitted in the school. So the principal refused. And what I did, I wrote an application letter to let the principal allow me being admitted in that school. And thankfully, he agreed. And that's how I joined my Forces Academy in 2004, because I completed my high school in 2007. And my experience in my Forces was also not pleasing. But then when I compare to primary school, I had at least grown up a bit. So I was able to protect myself a bit. I became stronger because I told myself, if this thing has to go on and on and on, then it's going to affect me. And I knew that a time will come that I'll become a mother, and I would want to protect my child and not go through the bullying that I went through back in primary and also in high school. So while I was in high school, I became social, the opposite of how I was while in primary school. And I being social with people really helped me to people not really know the kind of life that I was brought up in, or rather the family that I came from. And even the people that I schooled with in high school, when I tell them that Brenda came from a poor or rather humble background, they'll refuse, because that's not what I portrayed myself while I was in high school. So yeah, I finished high school I joined in 2004, and in 2007 I completed my high school and I passed really well. Yeah, so one thing that I'm really proud of myself is, no matter the circumstances that I was brought up in, at least I made my mother proud. I passed in primary, I also passed in high school. And also, I was brought up in ghetto. Like, the environment that I was brought up in, it was really chaotic, because we used to live in a Swahili house. Swahili house whereby you share toilets with neighbors, you share cooking spaces with neighbors, like all that. It was really crazy. And the house that you were living, there are people who were selling alcohol. Like, you can imagine all the things that happen in such kind of a setup. And also there was a lot of drugs and substance abuse. So you can imagine being brought up in such a setup, or rather certain environment, how tricky it can be, because you have your teenagehood that you have to outgrow. You have to go through high school, you have to go through college, there's life after that. And if you're not careful with that situation, it's going to really mess you up. Because I have friends that I grew up with, or childhood friends, that the environment really affected them. I have friends who got into drug and substance abuse. I lost friends to that. So that, having that self-control and just reminding myself at the back of my mind the kind of life that I was brought up in, and I didn't want to let my mother down at all, because I saw the struggle and the effort that she was making to make sure that at least we never missed school, and at least we had food on the table. So I had to make my mother proud no matter what. So I completed high school in 2007. And then when I was in high school, almost finishing Form 4, my brother had joined college. So you can imagine the burden of the burden my mother had, of me being in wanting to join, almost finishing high school and almost joining college, and also my brother in college. Like, it was a lot of burden to her. So I had to stay home for 1 year before I joined college. And my mom's sister, that is my aunt, took it up upon herself and took me through college. But then when I joined college, I schooled with people who had lower grades than me. I didn't want to do that course, and it really took time for me to accept to do the same course as them, because I had excelled really well. But then I told myself, when life gives you lemon, make lemonade out of it. I reminded myself of the situation that I grew up in, the bullying that I went through. And before I finished high school, there was a club that was called Straight Talk Club. And basically what Straight Talk Club was, it was all about sensitizing and empowering each other, youths, teenagers, and even older people. And that's where my strength came from. I gained strength from speaking to people, speaking my story to people, and just like make them understand this is natural, these things happen. And it's all depends with how you take it upon yourself, you know. Yeah, so when I joined college, I did counseling course. And through counseling course, that's where my calling came in. I realized that there was a calling that I really didn't know or understand about, because while I was in primary, I wanted to do journalism. And then when I joined college, I wanted to do architecture, but then I hated maths. So I couldn't do architecture. So when I finished and I got my grades, I wanted to do something else. Like I didn't want to do counseling, you know. I wanted to do engineering, but then I had failed in maths. I had excelled in other subjects, but I had failed in maths. There was no way I could do the course because I hated maths. So I did a counseling course while in college, and through that, I've been able to. It really opened a lot for myself because number one, I gained courage from that. Mental counseling goes hand in hand with mental health, and that's where my drive and my passion for mental health came about. And I started empowering. I was going to schools, that is higher learning institutions, primary schools, and working setups, corporates, talking to them about what mental health is. But then back then, people didn't really know, because that was around 2011. That's when I finished my course. But then people didn't really embrace about mental health. And then you can imagine being in a setup whereby you meeting old people, people who are, you can call them your parents, people are much older than you. Then you can imagine being in such an environment, trying to sensitize them. The picture they will have is that this is a very young girl. Like she cannot tell me anything about mental health. But then it didn't stop there. And then after I finished my course, that's when I conceived my son. And that is the worst mistake that I did, conceiving him, because I was very young when I had him, because I didn't really have much experience on the life setup, on how the outside world is, and even how marriage is. And I got him in 2012. That's when he was born, 2012 November. And then I decided to get married, whereby there's that stage that sometimes teenagers or other youths become rebellious, whereby you're being told by your elders, your parents, your older siblings that this is not the right way to go about it, but then you set it up upon your mind that this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. So I got married. And when I got married, all I can say that I went through a lot of hell in that marriage, but then there's something called trauma bond, whereby no matter what I was going through, I couldn't see myself out of that situation, or rather, not being with the person that I was married with, you know. So I went through a lot. It was more of emotional abuse, whereby my ulcers spiked up, and you can imagine going through emotional abuse, and then there's postpartum depression. Like it was just a lot of baggage for me. And I was married in 2011 because I had my son in 2012. And then I stayed in that marriage for almost 10 years. But then every time and then the struggles that I was going through in my marriage, I could not tell my mom, because my mom had warned me that, Brenda, you need to elevate yourself in education before you get married. But then who is Brenda? Brenda didn't listen to her mother. So there's no way I could tell her, because she had warned me before about it. And at the same time, she has pressure. So I didn't want to like jeopardize her health. At the same time, I could not share with my brother. Like I was fighting it by myself, and I fought it till 2020. And before 2020, something really terrible happened, whereby my ex-husband burnt my son's hand. He has a mark to date. And the reason as to why, the reason surrounding why he burnt my son, like even when I explain it, like it's crazy. you know. So there's this time that I had a shop while I was still in Mombasa, and my son took some money from his father and he went to use it in school. I never knew nothing about it. So when he came back from work, he told me, our son did this and this and this, and I think that what I'll do to him today, he will never repeat it again. So I don't like getting into, if a child wants to be punished, like let them be punished, so long as it's not a punishment that is going to hurt them. So basically, when he went home back from school, and I was supposed to travel in 2 days' time to my brother's place. He lives in Voi. So when I went back home, and I got my son, he looked cold, he looked afraid, and I didn't really concentrate much on that. I just knew maybe he had been punished by his father. So the next day we were traveling to Voi, and then I noticed my son has some burnt mark on his hand, and I asked him, what really happened to you? And he told me that his father burnt him. I was confused, I was shocked, I was afraid, and I could not protect my son. So when I tried to tell him why he did this, like he was being protective of himself, telling me that I'm trying to get into him punishing his child. And it really got chaotic, and it was all chaotic. And every time I would try to tell him, because I knew, or rather I understood, that no marriage is perfect. And in case of any challenges, you talk about it. But basically what he used to do, he would shout at me, he would scream at me, he would abuse me, he would abuse my family, he would abuse my mom, my brother, like basically everyone in my family, you know. And whenever I try to tell him, please talk calmly, because this is between the two of us, and it's not about even our neighbors or anything, he will tell me, let them hear me talking so that they know how stupid you are. So it was all about more emotional abuse. And how I got myself out of that situation is that it was in 2020. So 2020, I think I was getting depressed. I have been through depression before when I earlier got married. So I knew the signs of depression, and I, being a mental health advocate or the activist, I understand about mental health. So I knew I was depressed, and it was really getting really bad, whereby I excluded myself from people. I wanted to isolate myself from people. Even my mother noticed that I was separating myself from people, from the world, from the society. And I told myself, Brenda, now it's time for you to take action. And what I did, what I decided to do, number one, I decided to pray, because me talking to people, I told myself, how safe will my situation be outside there? How will they use the story to people out there? So I started praying. And I cried to my God so much. And I told God, now this is your time for you to intervene in the situation. I think I'm failing my son. I think I'm failing myself. You need to step in for me. So I started praying. And the next thing that I also did, I started working out. So praying and working out, because I told myself, before getting out of that situation, or rather out of that toxic marriage, I wanted to heal a bit, because I know healing takes time, and I could not heal at that particular time. But I wanted to have a little bit of healing before getting out of that place. I didn't want to have a lot of pain outside there, or rather a lot of being toxic and imposing my situation to other people, because sometimes that can happen. Whether you're stressed, you're going through something, you just find wrongs in everyone, you know. So I started working out and praying, and that really helped me. And the funny part is, I could not eat, and my son noticed about all that. And in fact, when he got banned, when he traveled to Voi, and he was asked by my brother and my mother, he said that he fell down. So it's like the father tried to coerce him into saying, whenever someone asks you, say that you fell down, you know, like he had imposed so much fear on him. And I told them that he was burnt by his father because of this and this. They wanted to take him to the police station, but then I protected him, because I told myself, how was I going to take care of this child alone? I didn't have enough resources. So they didn't take him to any police station, or rather report him. They didn't take any action, but then the guilt was really eating me up. So how I got out of there. So my brother lives in Voi. He's married to a very beautiful wife and 4 kids. And back then, his wife had delivered. So I told myself, Brenda, this is the escape route for you to leave this toxic marriage. So I left like I was traveling. And then it was during the curfew time whereby you could not travel. So I told this person, the ex-husband, that I'm supposed to go and help my sister-in-law. She's delivered and she needs someone to help her taking care of her newborn. Yeah, so he took us to the bus station. We took a taxi. We traveled through private means, my son and I, to my brother's place. And that is how I left my marriage. And before I left, I had taken my documents to my mom's place, the important documents and my son's documents to my mom's place. Yeah, and that's how I left and went to live with my brother. So it was during the COVID period, and then pupils were not going to school, but then they resumed. And then I was not working. So I lived with my brother for 1 year without any source of income or rather any source of stability. But then while living with my brother, he got a job for me. It wasn't a well-paying job, but at least I could tell myself it's something that could sustain my son and I. So I lived with them for 1 year. And during the period of 1 year, I think they saw the worst of me. And by the worst, I mean, and the person who really saw it more is my sister-in-law, because my brother travels a lot. And mostly I was with my sister-in-law. So I would crash so bad. I would cry so bad. And then I continued working out. And while I was working out, I used to pass out a lot because I was not eating. I was stressed, I was depressed. The number of times I've tried committing suicide, like just go by the roadside and just see speeding cars, and I want to throw myself on the road and just get killed. But then the thought of my son really brought me back. And I told myself, Brenda, you have to keep on fighting. You have people who love you. My brother loves me. My sister-in-law loves me. My mother loves me. I was surrounded by people who loved me. So I lived with my brother for 1 year. And then he was shifting to a new place. And then I told them that now it's time for me to also start living by myself and my son, you know. Yeah, and that's how we started life alone with my son and I. So that was, I lived with them from 2020 to 2021, and we started living by ourselves in 2021 with my son and I. Yeah, so through then, I worked for some period, the job that my brother got me, but then my contract ended, and I researched on where I could do the services based on what I had studied. So I started working with a hospital in Mombasa called the Moi Referral Hospital, and I was there for a period of 1 year. So from there, I built networks. I built a lot of networks because I'm someone who is very social. I became very social. I had to become very social. And from building networks, I could get gigs and also different kind of jobs so that I could sustain my son and I. So people really think that Brenda is a strong woman, but they don't really understand or rather know the struggles that Brenda had to go through for me to be strong. And through all that, I tell myself today that at least I'm able to protect my son, because no one was there to protect me. Not that I wasn't loved by my mother or rather my brother, but then I looked at the situation that we had while growing up and just the problems that you're going through, and then having to add more problems, adding salt to wound. So I had to swallow a lot of things to myself. And me separating from my son's father, it really affected him, but I think he was young and he couldn't understand much. But then after growing up, that's when he came to open up, you know. And just also having his father bullying him about his body size and all that. And I told myself, Brenda, you have to keep protecting this boy, because if you don't protect him, it's going to affect you how it affected you, how it affected you while growing up. Because all that is to this stage right now, I am fighting ulcers because I was holding so much for myself and I developed ulcers, you know. So right now, what I'm trying to do is fighting for wellness, mental wellness of individuals, whereby I feel it's in my space to whereby when I'm exposed, or rather when I'm introduced to a certain space, just people to embrace and understand, like, your past should not determine how your present should be. And I thank God, by the grace of God, after quitting my marriage in 2023, I was blessed with my husband now. And he's changed a lot of things in our lives. He loves my son so much. He loves me too so much. And each and every time I pray twice for him. And also at the same time, my brother and my sister-in-law, they've been a great support system to this date right now. Like, I would count on them in whatever situation. They took me in, and my son and I, like I was their own. They loved us like we were their own. They never showed us any, like, feel like we are less of people, and they never made us feel like we didn't belong in that space. They embraced us. And today, when you ask my son, who is the strongest person, she will tell you is Brenda. Brenda is the strongest person. Like, the things that were meant to break me, they made me to who I am today. Because before, when I would share my story with people, I would cry so much because I had not healed. People need to take time to heal. When you heal, you won't be bitter, number one. Number two, you'll be able to share your story without emotions. People really get to understand what you really went through. And then number three, a lot of people will learn from your story, because so many people are going through the same thing that you're going through, but then they don't have the strength, they don't have the courage to, like, even express themselves. Because why? They have fear of judgment from the society. And it's the same fear that I had. What will people say about me? Will they call me a failure? Will they say that I failed in my marriage? But then I said, no, Brenda, you have to pick yourself. You have to pick yourself and your son, because if not, you're going to lose yourself in the process. And the most important thing, prayers. Prayers really helped me a lot. And prayers have helped me a lot, and they still help me a lot. When I separated from my ex, I prayed to God and I told him, and if it's not my portion for me to get married to that right man, not perfect man, because I know I will never get a perfect man, but to that right person who will take me as I am, who will accept my son, who will love me for who I am, then let me not get married. So I continued praying to him, and I continued believing in him. And another thing is, I had a spiritual father, and I'm saying I had because he passed on last year, whereby whenever I would go through any difficulties, I used to call him. Even when I was crashing out, while I was still in my previous marriage, I would call him, I would go visit him and explain to him what I'm going through. So it would help me spiritually. And also my mother is a spiritual warrior. I think her prayers and her fighting for me through prayers is what has kept me to this date. Because when I came to Voi, I didn't know what life had. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what life had for us, for my son and I. I didn't know it was going to be really difficult, like starting afresh. You don't have much. You are in a new place. You've never lived in such a place. So there's a lot of confusion. You can also imagine trying to bring up your son in a new environment that he's not even used to. So it was a lot for me. And each time, sometime I would crash out and I would call my mom and I tell my mom, Mom, I'm so tired. I don't even have the strength to pray. And she will tell me, she will remind me how many things I have gone through, how many troubles and tribulations have I gone through. Did I ever stop praying? No. Did you ever think you'll get to this point when you were a little girl? I said no. So yeah, I would say prayers really helped me a lot. Like, whenever I feel low, whenever I feel like it's too much for me, I bow down and kneel down to my God and I pray to him. And what I can say today is that I'm a happy woman, I'm a healed woman, and I'm loved. I got married again. And to someone who respects me and I respect him, someone who loves my son and I, someone who is down to earth, someone who you call him your life partner, someone who you had prayed to God for the longest time, but then you didn't know when God had planned to bless him with. So my encouragement to you out there is, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you went through in the past, your past should not determine your present. You should keep on fighting for yourself, because no one can have your back apart from yourself. And no one should tell you that you can't do it, because if Brenda did it, despite all the difficulties that I went through, despite all the terrible past that I went through, I think I would say my worst moments was when I was married, because you thought you're having something very beautiful with this person, and then there's something beautiful that came out of it, that is a child. Like, children are blessing, right? So I felt like this was a blessing to both of us, and something really beautiful is going to come out of it. But then what I went through in that marriage really I questioned my sanity. You can imagine having the educational background that I had, but then to this person, that meant nothing. This person will compare me to celebrities, and you can imagine having gone through postpartum. I had just delivered my son, and postpartum is different from any person, from every other person. It can take 2 years, it can take 3 years, and this is a body that has produced something. It needs time to heal. So during that experience, you will expect at least to get an emotional support from your spouse. But then there's the person who is crushing you the most. So you can imagine battling postpartum, at the same time battling marital stress, emotional domestic violence. And like, I excelled in education, I passed really well, but then this person would compare me to people that I don't even know, people that I had never even met. Like, he would want me to compete with the people, and just like reminding me that you're not there yet, each and every time. And even comparing my body, you have to be like so and so. And these people are celebrities, like big celebrities in Hollywood. Him comparing to such people. This person would beat my child. My child was growing up with this person. This child was not protective of himself, whereby even a younger child will beat him. And then when it would come to report, what the dad will do, the dad will beat him really bad. And whenever I will try to get in between that, this person would abuse me loudly, to even the neighbors will hear. And in the morning, someone asking you, Mama so and so, what was happening? Like, it became really continuous, you know? And just having to remind me how much of a failure I was through his words. No one has ever crushed me like that before. Leave alone the bullying that I went through in primary, whereby I will be called out for having tattered clothes and having spots. I just told myself when I grew up that these are just the normal jokes that children had. But then what this person was telling me, I have never been crushed like that before. This person really crushed me so bad. This person will mess the house. This person will mess the toilet. And whenever you try to tell me, he will tell you, what's your work as a wife? Like, kazi yako ni nini? What are you supposed to do? Fanya. It was just a lot of crash out. So the moment, or the period that really crushed me, was in my previous marriage. And I will never even wish that for anybody. Because if I didn't take it upon myself and say, let me go to my Creator and pray, and also take care of my physical health, so that my sanity gets into place. If this was someone else who didn't have the strength and to make the decision that I made, and that's why I find people committing suicide. I think I would have committed suicide by now. So that's the moment, or the period, that really crushed me down. And then just starting life afresh with my son, I felt like I was failing him as a child, because it's a dream of every parent to bring up a child with both parents. But then I chose this path for the safety and sanity of my son and I. But then at the back of my mind, I was asking myself, was I really making the right decision? Or rather, did I make the right decision? Basically, my profession entails mental health activism, whereby we all understand the dynamics surrounding mental health. People are going through a lot and afraid, or rather, they don't have a safe space for them to share their experiences. And I, being a survivor of mental health illness, I feel it's in my place to sensitize and empower, or rather motivate anyone out there who are going through mental health. And the groups that I have worked with before, and I also work with, I have mentored and sensitized higher learning institutions, primary, and also correctional services like prisons and police departments, because people have this notion or the perception about police, but they tend to forget that police is a human being like me and you, and the difficulties surrounding, just like any other career, police department go through a lot of trauma, and what I do what I have done in my career as a mental health activist is just understanding the dynamics surrounding their work situation, rather the work environment that is trying to be related to mental health. And I came to realize that there is no that safe space, because people tend to feel like since this person is a police, they have to be strong. So they don't tend to go through the mental health illness. And also at the same time, men go through a lot of mental health illnesses. And I, being a mother to a boy, I'm raising a young man, so I am starting charity from home. I don't want this boy growing up to be a broken man. And mostly people have this perception that, so since you are a man, they say jikaze kimwanaume, like men are not supposed to express themselves. So you find that a lot of men are really crashing down. And I provide safe space for them. I have been providing safe space for them without judging them, and understanding their mental health situations, and just help them go through the mental health situations or other illnesses, and just make them understand that mental health illness doesn't choose gender. It can affect anyone. And so it's upon themselves to just pick up, whether men or women, because the moment you don't speak up, you tend to hold a lot within yourself, and then now it comes to an extreme stage, and then that's where you find people committing suicide, you find people murdering people, doing burglary, doing a lot of crazy things, because people have battling a lot of mental health illnesses, but they don't have someone to really listen to them.